You know that feeling when you're arguing about something from the past, and it feels like you're just throwing random facts at each other? Well, what if I told you that professional historians, they don't just know a bunch of facts, they know how to argue. And today, we're going to break down their playbook. I mean, the past is over and done with, right? Well, kind of. The events happened, sure, but what they mean, how we understand them, that's always up for debate. So the real question is, how do you build an argument about history that's not just convincing, but that actually holds up? You start with a blueprint. Yeah, just like building a house, a really solid historical argument needs a solid structure. And for our blueprint today, we're going to use something pretty cool: the official scoring guide for the AP US history exam. It is the perfect model for how historians actually build and judge arguments. Okay, first things first, you have to set the stage. Before you can even start making your case, you got to give your argument a world to live in. You have to build the context. Historians have a word for this: contextualization. Honestly, it's kind of like the previously on part of your favorite TV show. You have to paint the picture of what was going on, the bigger events, the major ideas that were shaping the exact moment you're about to dive into. So let's say we're trying to explain that huge economic boom in America right after World War II. You can't just start in 1945. No way. You have to set the stage with what came right before: the absolute misery of the Great Depression, then the gigantic surge in government spending for the war, and of course this brand new global rivalry called the Cold War. All those things created the perfect storm for the prosperity that came next. All right, so the stage is set. Now it's time for the main event. You have to make a clear, arguable claim. In the history world, we call this a thesis. Now, here's the most important thing to get. A claim isn't just a fact. It's your main argument, the big idea you're setting out to prove. And it absolutely has to be something that a reasonable person could disagree with. I mean, if everybody already agrees with it, you don't have an argument. You just have a fact. Just look at the difference here. The weak claim, it just says, hey, things changed. Yeah, no kidding. That's a fact, not an argument. But now look at the strong claim. It makes a really specific point that the growth pushed suburban ideals. And then here's the kicker. It introduces tension, arguing that this new American dream wasn't open to everyone. That is an argument you can really dig into. So, you set the stage, you've made a bold claim. Awesome. But now you've got to back it up. Because an argument without evidence, well, that's just an opinion. The best evidence usually comes from primary sources, the actual raw materials from the time period. So here, a historian uses the GI Bill as direct proof. They're not just saying the GI Bill existed. They're explaining exactly how it worked to lift people into the middle class, supporting their bigger argument. And evidence can also tell the other side of the story. This property deed is a perfect and pretty chilling example. It shows how that new suburban dream was actively and legally kept away from people of color. The document isn't just a piece of paper. It's hard evidence of a system that complicates that simple, happy story of progress. But here's the thing that really takes an argument to the next level. You can't just use the documents someone gives you. You have to bring in your own outside knowledge, specific facts, people, or events that make your analysis so much deeper. For example, while we're talking about inequality after the war, you could bring up FDR's Black Cabinet. This was this informal group of Black leaders who were fighting for equal access to New Deal programs before and during the war. This little piece of outside evidence adds so much, showing the struggle for economic justice was already happening, which gives you a much richer context for the civil rights movement that followed. Okay, we've got our context, we've got a claim, we've got evidence. Now for the final kind of master-level step: embracing complexity. This is what separates a pretty good argument from a truly great one. Think about the interstate highway system. It's this massive project from that era. At first glance, it seems like a clear symbol of progress, right? Connecting the country, fueling suburban growth. A simple argument would just leave it there. But a complex argument, it digs deeper. When you analyze the language a journalist used back then, you see a totally different story. Words like slice through, wipe out. This same highway system was often used to deliberately tear down and destroy thriving Black neighborhoods. So progress for some was literally devastation for others. And that right there is what complexity is all about. It's about acknowledging the contradictions. It's showing that you get that history is messy. It's not a simple story of good guys and bad guys. It's about being willing to tweak your own argument to account for the evidence that doesn't quite fit.
Okay, so we've walked through the whole blueprint. Let's just zoom out for a second and talk about why any of this really matters.
This four-step process, context, thesis, evidence, and complexity, it's not just some formula to pass a test. It is a really powerful framework for thinking critically about, well, about everything. And that's really the heart of it. Learning how to build a strong, evidence-based, complex argument isn't just for historians. It's an essential skill for understanding the news, for making big decisions in your life, and for just being an engaged citizen in a really complicated world. Which kind of leaves us with one last thought. Right now, all of us, we're creating the primary source documents of tomorrow. So what story will they tell? What complex, messy, evidence-based arguments will future historians build about the world we're all living in today?